Welcome to today's explainer covering the August 28th, 2026 shared market fixture between the Los Angeles Rams and Los Angeles Chargers. We're stepping onto the gridiron with a very specific mission. We're going to completely strip away regular season reputation and focus purely on structural execution. When you don't have the primary starters locked in, the game becomes a fascinating test of organizational depth and coaching discipline.
So you might be wondering, without a verified regular season game sample to lean on, how in the world we actually measure which unit creates sustainable down and distance? In August, it's incredibly easy to get distracted by a flashy play or a big final score, but those can be wildly misleading. We need an entirely different lens to view the action.
The answer is all about prioritizing process over prediction. Think of it this way. Aggregate scores on a preseason scoreboard mean far less right now than how these coaching staffs are actually using these snaps. They're testing tactical installation, evaluating the depths of their roster talent, and scrutinizing run-fit integrity. A win on the scoreboard is nice, for sure, but a win in execution is what actually builds a regular season contender.
Here is our tactical roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be hitting 1. The data void, 2. Quarterbacks versus pressure, 3. Line versus front, 4. Skill and special teams, 5. Game states, and wrapping up with 6. The verdict. Let's get right to it. Section 1. The data void, navigating preseason uncertainty. Before we even begin to break down the tactical film, we have to acknowledge the reality of this matchup. Heading into this 2026 fixture, we have absolutely no verified competitive sample yet. We're essentially operating in a total data void. Because of this, we are intentionally ignoring metrics like EPA per play, success rates, explosive play rates, and red zone touchdown metrics. Seriously, inventing or backfilling ratings for drop-back pressure and third down conversions without a frozen 2026 sample, that's basically analytical malpractice. We strictly refuse to guess. Instead of guessing, we evaluate success by charting functional gains and quick game completion quality. What we really want to see is who creates a sustainable drive. A drive is sustainable when early downs consistently produce a second and manageable situation, completely avoiding reliance on low probability throws, busted coverages, or just massive strokes of turnover luck. We want repeatable, functional execution. Section 2. Quarterbacks versus pressure. The pocket duel. Our first major tactical duel is honestly like a high-speed chess match. We're focusing on how rotating reserve quarterbacks handle simulated pressure and post-snap coverages. When a defense shows a too-high look and then dynamically rotates after the snap, the defensive goal is to create pressure which is for rushers so they can keep their intermediate coverage help intact. The offensive goal? Absolute hot answer discipline. The passer has to replace that pressure with a hot answer or calmly take the check down. Holding the ball and creating a long yardage sack or turnover risk is exactly what we want to avoid. Section 3. Trenches, line versus front. Let's get down in the dirt at the line of scrimmage. Here is our second massive duel, the reserve offensive line battling the opposing defensive front seven. We are just counting raw sack numbers here. We want to see the mechanics of the protection. Are the offensive tackles firmly setting the edge against wide rushers? Are the guards and centers communicating in passing stunts cleanly? In the run game, we're watching the linebackers for gap fits and displacement. Because if an offense suffers repeat negative first down runs, they're immediately forced into low probability third and longs, which absolutely craters their scoring expectation. Section 4. Skill players and special teams. Shifting out to the perimeter, we have to look at the skill personnel versus secondary communication. Watch how the substitution-heavy defensive backs communicate through bunch releases and crossing routes. We have to prioritize repeatable wins against a coverage scheme over a single isolated explosive play caused by a blown assignment. And here's a pro tip for you. Red zone target distribution is your single best indicator of which receivers a backup quarterback truly trusts, especially when they might only get 1 or 2 drives inside the 20 all night. And please, never, ever underestimate special teams in an August matchup. It is absolutely crucial. We need to track clean center snapping, punt hang time, coverage lane integrity, and starting field position control. Why? Because a drive starting beyond the 30-yard line due to a short punt or a muffed exchange changes the score outlook far more directly than accumulating a tiny difference in total offensive yardage. Field position is king. Section 5. Game states and live cues. So, how do you actually watch this unfold live? Let's break down the causal game states and chronological cues you need to track. Right out of the gate in the first quarter, verify the exact quarterback order and count those first-team trench snaps. Remember, 2 sustained drives that methodically reach midfield mean infinitely more than 1 heavily scripted opening play explosive. As we move through the first half, actively compare the reserve quarterback's clean pocket rate against the opponent's pass rush. By the fourth quarter, your eyes should be glued to net punting and the cleanliness of those reserve QB center exchanges.
Let's look at some specific early game states. If the Chargers take an early lead, it's highly stable if it was built on 4-man defensive pressure and sustainable first downs. But it is incredibly fragile if it was just built on short fields and turnover luck. The moment backup protection deteriorates, that lead is in danger. On the flip side, if the Rams lead early, it's highly credible if produced by a stable quarterback rotation and net field position control. Crucially, a Rams lead early on will force the trailing Chargers staff into aggressive, higher variance fourth down choices, which wildly widens the game's potential outcomes.
Now, if we enter the final quarter tied or within 1 score, throw all those broad team narratives right out the window. In a tight, late preseason game, the structural edge goes completely to the unit with cleaner center quarterback exchanges and superior net punt placement. Watch closely how the coaches use their timeouts and pay attention to kicker range because protection busts and field goals dictate the final margin here.
Section 6, Final Verdict and Estimates. All right, let's dive into our final model output for this matchup. As we look at the numbers, keep in mind that the shared Los Angeles stadium setting drastically reduces the standard home field assumptions we normally make about travel fatigue and hostile crowd noise. Our uncalibrated baseline leans slightly, 51%, to the Chargers and 48% to the Rams. You'll also notice a 1% theoretical tie outcome, which strictly depends on unverified 2026 preseason overtime administration rules. The median projected point total for this game is sitting at 39. But listen, expect massive variance around this number. Higher scoring paths will open right up if we see clean backup pass protection and short fields from the return units. Conversely, if we see heavy reserve line pressure and constant conservative play calling, it will easily drag this total well below 39 points. This leaves us with a highly conditional model estimate of Chargers 20, Rams 19. It's a razor-thin margin. And frankly, this projection will shift dramatically the exact moment official first-team snap counts and starting quarterback rotations are confirmed right prior to kickoff. We absolutely must emphasize a strong sports analytics disclaimer here. These are high uncertainty model estimates produced under severe preseason information constraints. They are completely independent of any unverified betting markets, player propositions, or official injury reports. This is purely tactical analysis of team structure, not betting advice, as all lineups remain strictly unverified. So, as we head into kickoff with historical data stripped away, the ultimate question remains: when the regular season starters are wearing baseball caps on the sideline, which team's depth and discipline will step up and prove they truly understand the process? Keep your eyes on the trench communication, watch that quick game decision-making, and do not ignore special teams. Thanks for joining us for this explainer and enjoy the game.